Imagine receiving a message from someone claiming to be part of the Illuminati, a secret society so powerful that they can manipulate everything. At first, you laugh it off, thinking it's just some prank. But what if they start to know things about you, things they shouldn't? Details like your hotel name, your bus license plate, your real name. What would you do? It was supposed to be a fun, carefree spring break in Austria. 5 days of skiing with my friends. We were enjoying ourselves until the third day, when I got a message that would change everything. The message was from a stranger on Instagram claiming to be part of the Illuminati. At first I thought it was a joke. After all, how many times do you get messages like this? But something about it felt off. I showed my friends the message and we all had a good laugh, but boredom set in that night, and my friends convinced me to reply just for fun. So I messaged back and said I was interested in what the guy had to say. That's when things took a dark turn. The man didn't stop at just casual talk. He started saying things like, "You can't hide from me," and "This was my destiny." My friends and I were laughing it off, but deep down, something felt wrong. And then, he started telling me things about myself. Things that no one could have known. He knew my real name. He knew the name of the hotel I was staying at. He even knew the license plate of the bus I was going to take back home. This was no longer funny. It felt like I was being watched. But instead of blocking him, I kept replying, "Curiosity got the best of me." Have you ever received a strange message like this? Would you have ignored it or kept talking? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The next day on the mountain, we got a new ski instructor. He was tall, muscular, and since he was new, didn't know anyone's name. He went down the line asking for everyone's names. But when he came to me, he stopped. He smiled at me, whispered my name, and said, "Join." I froze. How did he know my name? I hadn't written it anywhere on my jacket, backpack, or skis. He just knew it. I didn't want to make a scene, so I kept my distance. But that night, I received another message from a random number. The text was simple but chilling. "Believe me now." At this point, I was terrified. I texted back, begging to be left alone, but the man responded with something that made my blood run cold. He claimed that once I agreed to join, I was stuck. There was no way out. The man's messages kept coming. He told me that I was now a member of the Illuminati and that I couldn't leave. It didn't matter how much I tried to change my phone or number. I kept getting strange, untraceable calls from around the world. When I didn't answer, the voicemail would just be strange noises, whispers, shouting, static. This went on for a whole year. And then something strange happened. I went on the same ski trip the next year with my friends, and just like that, the messages stopped. The calls, the whispers, the strange encounters, gone. But was it over? Or was this just the calm before something much darker? I'll never know for sure. What do you think? Was it all a twisted prank, or was I truly targeted by something sinister? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What if I told you that on a quiet hill just minutes from home, two friends encountered a man who wasn't just strange, he was terrifyingly unnatural. And when they ran for their lives, he chased them, with eyes glowing red, through the dark woods. This story begins on a cold December evening, when two friends, Max and his buddy Lucas, decided to go skiing on an isolated hill just outside their town. What started as an ordinary evening quickly spiraled into something that neither of them would ever forget. And the scariest part? What happened on that hill has left them questioning whether they were being followed or hunted. It was about 7 p.m. The temperature had dropped, and the dark winter sky began to blanket the small town. Max and Lucas, looking for a cheap thrill, walked a mile to a hidden hill they had frequented many times before. The air was crisp and the snow was freshly packed, but something about that evening felt off. They couldn't quite put their finger on it. That eerie feeling that no one talks about until it's too late. They shrugged off the strange vibes and strapped on their skis, ready for some downhill fun. But the unease lingered. At first, everything seemed normal. A few runs down the hill. Then, as Lucas skied ahead, the chilling silence was shattered by a sound. A heavy, deliberate step. Turning around, Max froze in shock as a man appeared at the top of the hill, standing still and staring at him. His clothes didn't match the freezing cold, and his eyes, bright red, glowed in the setting sun, almost unnatural. Was it an illusion, or something much darker? Lucas, too, saw the stranger, and his reaction? A blood-curdling scream, the kind that only comes when true terror sets in. Without thinking, Max shot down the hill, adrenaline pumping, but as he looked back, he saw something that would haunt him for years. The man wasn't walking. He was sprinting after them. What would you have done in that moment? Left your skis behind and fled for your life? Or faced the stranger head-on? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button if you want to hear more terrifying stories like this one. Belly raced down the hill, hearts pounding, but it wasn't enough. The man, relentless and terrifying, chased them, getting closer with every step. The woods ahead seemed like a distant escape, but would they make it? Max didn't stop running until he reached the bottom. He threw off his skis, stumbling into the snow, and kept going. Barefoot, cold, desperate. His only thought was getting home. But the man didn't follow all the way. After 5 minutes of pursuit, he stopped, staring, watching, and then, just as suddenly as he'd appeared, the stranger turned and vanished into the trees, disappearing as if he had never been there at all. Was it real? Or was it all in their minds? Max and Lucas didn't stick around to figure it out. They ran back home, barely stopping to catch their breath. After locking the doors, they called each other and both agreed on one thing. They would never return to that hill, at least not after dark. Was the man a figment of their imagination? Or was there something far more sinister lurking in those woods? What do you think happened that night? Was it just a strange coincidence? Or was there something darker at play? Let me know your thoughts. It was supposed to be just another late-night shift at a quiet ski resort, the kind of routine you get used to as a teenager. But that night, something felt different. The parking lot was empty, the air cold, and that truck wouldn't leave me alone. Was it just a coincidence, or was I being followed? What happens when you realize you're no longer in control of your own safety? I was 16 or 17, working at this small ski resort near my parents' house. Late-night shifts were pretty normal for me. I worked in rentals, and we had a deal that went on until about 4 a.m. On most nights, I'd have a coworker walk with me to my car. But not tonight. This particular night I was feeling a little too lazy to wait. It was freezing cold and the parking lot was empty. I waved off my coworkers, telling them to finish what they were doing. I wanted to head home. That's when I noticed the truck. At first, I didn't think much of it. The truck was slowly driving around the parking lot, doing donuts, rolling over snowbanks. I figured it was probably one of my coworkers, maybe waiting for someone. But as I scraped the snow off my old beat-up car, I realized something strange. The truck hadn't left. It was still circling the lot, and I had been standing there for about 10 minutes. At that point, I was slightly aware but not panicked. I figured it was no big deal, and I finally finished and got into my car. I started driving down the long, winding road that led to the national park, taking the usual route home, and that's when I saw it. The truck was still behind me. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just coincidence. But as I made a turn, the truck followed. Then, another turn. The truck followed again, and then I realized this wasn't normal. It was staying far behind, but it was keeping pace. It was deliberately following me. Have you ever had that gut feeling that someone is following you? What would you do if you realized you were being stalked? Comment below with your thoughts. The road through the park was a maze of side streets. Most people don't take these routes. It's a winding path through isolated woods. But no matter how many turns I made, the truck was still behind me. I tried going down routes I wouldn't normally take, hoping to shake it off. But it kept following. Turn after turn. It mirrored every move I made. For 15 minutes, this truck followed me, staying just far enough behind that I couldn't see who was driving. But I could feel it. I knew something wasn't right. At one point, I reached an intersection, one road leading straight home and another that took me way out of the way. I decided to take the longer route. Maybe if I got far enough ahead, I could lose it. I sped up, making sharp turns to get away, and eventually I pulled into a gas station. I parked at the back of the lot and turned off my lights, hoping the truck would just pass me. And then it happened. The truck slowed down as it approached the gas station. It was trying to pull into the lot, but just as it was about to, a police car pulled up on the other side of the road. The truck's lights flashed on, and in a split second it sped off, driving right past the cop. I took my chance. I followed the cop for a bit, trying to shake off the feeling that I wasn't out of danger yet. For the rest of the drive, I didn't see the truck again. I never saw the truck again after that night, but here's the thing. It didn't feel like a coincidence. I had made turns that didn't even make sense, yet somehow the truck was still right behind me. No one in their right mind would do that, unless they were intentionally following me. I never reported it, never found out who was in that truck or what their intentions were. But I still think about that night. What would have happened if I hadn't gotten away? If I hadn't been aware of my surroundings? I never saw that truck again. And I hope I never do. But it taught me one thing. You can never be too careful. Especially when something that should feel safe, like a late-night drive home, turns into a nightmare. Bad driving. What do you think? Was it just a coincidence, or did I narrowly escape something worse? Let me know in the comments below. It was supposed to be a fun night out in Austria, skiing, friends, drinks, but something felt off as soon as we walked into that nearly empty bar. It wasn't just the strange guys or the drunk girl. They were after something else, something darker. And when we tried to leave, we discovered the doors were locked. This wasn't just a bad night. This was a close call. My girlfriend Jane and I had been skiing all day, taking in the snow-covered mountains of Austria. It was around 1 a.m. when we decided to check out a nearby bar. The place was nearly empty except for a group of 5 guys, a very drunk girl, and the staff. We didn't think much of it at first. At first, the guys seemed to be talking to the drunk girl, convincing her to leave the bar. It felt off. Jane wanted to follow them to check on her, but I told her not to. We didn't want to get involved. So instead, we mentioned it to the bouncers. They reassured us it was fine, that they knew the guys. But something still didn't sit right with me. A couple of minutes later, 3 of the guys came back into the bar. They stopped at the other side of the room, and I noticed them staring at us. It wasn't a casual glance. It was intense, penetrating. I told myself it was nothing, but it definitely felt uncomfortable. Eventually, I went to the bathroom. When I returned, one of the guys, the one in the red jacket, was standing way too close to Jane and Rebecca. As soon as he saw me, he backed off and ran back to his group. I asked the girls what had happened, and they told me that this guy had bought Rebecca a drink. But here's the weird part. He didn't order the drink while standing with them. He'd gone to the bar, ordered it on his own, and then brought it over. That made us wonder, was the drink drugged? We laughed it off at first, just a guy trying his luck. But deep down, we couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. What would you do if a stranger gave your friend a drink without asking? Do you think it's just a bad pickup? Or is there something more to it? Minutes passed, and we tried to relax, but then he approached again. This time, he asked me who my girlfriend was. I told him, "It's Jane." Without missing a beat, He moved over to Rebecca, trying to hug and kiss her on the cheek. She clearly didn't want him anywhere near her. I had to step in. I grabbed his shoulder, told him to stop. She wasn't interested. He didn't listen at first, so I had to repeat myself. Finally, he backed off and walked away without a word. It was time to go, so we headed for the door. But as we stepped onto the street, I turned around and there he was, the guy in the red jacket walking behind us. It pissed me off. Was he following us? I didn't know, but I hoped I was just overthinking it. We walked into the next club, ordered some drinks, and sat down. For a while we didn't see him, and I thought maybe we had lost him. But then Jane came back from the bar looking upset. She told us the guy in the red jacket had approached her again. This time he gestured rudely at her, running his hand down his chest and winking. It was blatant, disrespectful, and creepy. That was enough. We decided to leave. But when we reached the exit, we hit a problem. The doors were locked from the inside. I'd never been to Austria before, but I knew that couldn't be normal. In an emergency, doors shouldn't be locked from the inside. I went to the bar to tell the bartender, but he didn't even acknowledge me. I tried again. Nothing. Finally, someone came from the outside and the doors opened. We stormed out, no longer caring about the rest of the night. When we got back to our place, I sent an email to the local police about the night, but never got a response. I still wonder, was this just a bunch of drunk idiots? Or could there have been something more sinister going on? I'll never know for sure, but I'm left with a haunting thought. Maybe there's more happening in those ski resort towns than meets the eye. A place full of tourists, no locals, and bars where strange things happen. Is it just creepy coincidences? Or could there be a darker agenda at play? Either way, I'll never go back to that bar, and I'll never forget that night. The weird guy in the red jacket, the locked doors, the ignored warnings. It felt like something wasn't right, and maybe, just maybe, we narrowly escaped a dangerous situation. Do you think something was off that night? Or was it just a bunch of creepy coincidences? Picture this. You're alone in the mountains, working a quiet shift when you spot something that shouldn't be there. Shadows move between the trees, but these aren't animals. These figures are too fast, too deliberate. What happens next? You won't believe it. This isn't your average night shift at a ski resort. One snowcat operator working the slopes at 2 a.m. saw something that would shake him to his core. Strange figures, moving unnaturally fast with no tracks left behind. But the real question is, were they human or something else entirely? The night air was cold and the moon was barely visible over the mountain peaks. It was 11:30 p.m. when he started his shift, his snowcat's headlights cutting through the darkness as he made his way over the fresh slopes. Everything seemed normal at first, a peaceful, solitary job in the quiet of the night. But something was off. Something was watching. As he approached the lower slopes near the edge of the resort, he saw movement in the trees. At first, he thought it was just his mind playing tricks on him. But no. The figures were too tall, moving too deliberately. They seemed unnatural, like they were stalking him. Was he seeing things, or was there something else out there? As the minutes passed, the figures didn't disappear. In fact, they grew bolder. Two shadows darted between the trees, their movements unnervingly fast, too fast to be ordinary people. And when he saw them again, racing across the slope itself, he realized something was terribly wrong. They were running, but there were no tracks, not a single footprint in the snow, even after they had crossed a whole stretch of the hill. How is that possible? What do you think these figures were? Could they have been some kind of creature or something more human than we'd like to admit? Leave your theories in the comments below. Distracted and uneasy, he tried to focus on his work. But the figures kept appearing, each time closer, crouching in the woods, as if watching him. Was this some sick prank, or was there something out there that was just waiting for him to make a move? By the time the first light of dawn broke over the mountain, he was ready to call it a night. But that feeling, the feeling that something was still out there, lingered. The next morning, he spoke with other operators, only to learn that he wasn't the only one who had seen these strange figures. But no one had any answers. And to this day, no one knows who or what they were. The resort might seem peaceful, but there's something that happens in the dead of night, something that can't be explained away. Strange figures, unnatural movements, and the eerie silence of the mountain, hiding secrets that no one can uncover. What's really out there in the woods? Is it just the mind playing tricks, or is there something far darker waiting for the right moment? What do you think? Was this just a freak accident, or was there something more sinister at play? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more stories that will make you think twice about the world around you.